Hi, everyone. I'm Shazia Makhdumi. I'm part of the Google Play org, and I lead our education and family partnerships team. So how many people here are VR content developers? Anyone? OK. How many people are just educational content developers, even if not in VR? OK. A few more. Anyone on Google Play as an app or in Google Play? Yeah. OK. Nice. Well, this is, so for the next 20 minutes or so, 19 minutes, 23 seconds, I'll be chatting with you about VR and AR and the application in education. So given there's a lot of sort of conversation on this, let's define some terms. So we talk about virtual reality as being something that takes you into a different world. Right? It obscures the real world. It takes you somewhere you couldn't go before, otherwise. AR, on the other hand, brings the world to you. So it overlays stuff, digital artifacts onto your real world. And both of them really help us enrich the world around us. So here you've got the night cafe from Van Gogh. And as a student, it's great to sort of look at it, to understand what the artist was doing. But what if you could actually go inside the painting and try and get a different level of interpretation? And that is why we say VR really enables the impossible. It lets you do something that is too dangerous, too hard, like skydiving. My mom has never allowed me. Or putting yourself into another person's shoes. You can do stuff that you otherwise couldn't do. And with AR, you can bring things into your life to sort of tell a narrative, a story, like playing with a pink unicorn that you've drawn. So what is the opportunity and why are we excited? So this is not just because AR and VR are exciting and sort of entertaining, and you can play VR games and you look cool with a headset. But it really is kind of the next generation of computing technology. So we had supercomputers, then followed by personal computers. Then we had harness the power of the internet, have a smartphone in your have a sort of I guess power in your pocket with a smartphone. But this is sort of immersive computing that a family of related technologies is there to really change how we interact with information and how it can really change how we experience the world around us. It's not happening quickly though. So despite all the talk and the hype, we think it's going to be a few years before the market really takes off. And even in that, the growth will be driven probably by mobile VR. AR is expected to be a few years behind based on the fact that you need to really get a lot of the devices out there, and most people seem to be focusing on VR devices. And if you think about sort of the market, you can see like by 2021, is expected even just, this is just the education market, not just the overall consumer market, but it's expected to grow to over 1.7 billion. A lot of the growth being driven in developed markets and in higher education. And about at least 1/3 plus is coming from content. The rest is from devices and gear. And unlike those beautiful charts we see of the evolution of the humans in a straight line, this is going to have a lot of fits and starts and a lot of wrong turns and dead ends. But as computing power grows, design sort of become design objectives grow, this is going to come into its own. So now let's switch gears and talk about the potential in education. So when we think about what all of us collectively here are doing, and I'm assuming everyone here is related to education in some way, we are creating that next generation of sort of thinkers and experts, and there'll be doctors and scientists, yes, and innovators and entrepreneurs. But what are we really training them for? So if someone enters kindergarten this year, quick guess, when are they graduating? No one would take a quick guess? No one has a kid? 2034. So what are the jobs in 2034 that will be available to them? We don't know. In fact, a previous US Secretary of Education said, we're trying to train kids for jobs that don't exist today, to solve problems that we don't know are problems, using technology that sort of has not been invented yet. So how do we do that? And in fact, studies show that over 60% of those jobs are not there today. And we can't really train for them. But what we can do is create learning environments in which they have the ability to learn and they develop the skills that they need to be successful. But what are those skills? So last year, Google, we commissioned The Economist to do a survey of business executives and ask them, what are the skills, the most important skills in the workplace? And it was really interesting, sort of what we heard back. So anyone want to venture a guess of some of the skills that, I want to make this interactive. So anyone? And there is no wrong answer because there are a lot of, yes. 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 Oh, wow, I love this audience. So a lot of people, when I do this in the US, a lot of people are like, yes, math and science and technology and finance and accounting. And those were there too. But you're right. The most important things were things like problem solving, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, as you guys said. And those are not, they're not like things you get from a textbook. Those are things that they're behaviors, and you learn them by doing. Right? And so it's not like, okay, there's information, you go to the library, and you're like, how do I solve problems? Don't even know what the problems are. And so having said that, we need technology to create the learning environments in which kids can learn these skills. But here's the challenge. Current EdTech solutions, are they books or libraries, a digital library, computer labs in school, the carts, even the one-on-one devices, they give you access to information. So the expert is the one who gets that information, is able to then be tested on it and do well. And they're like, yes, you retain the information. But how do you learn those behaviors? And we know that the best learning technologies are those where it fosters the learning. So it allows learners to learn on their own and to really absorb the information. So how do we do that to get all the skills, the problem solving and collaboration and critical thinking that you guys said are that important? The technology we use for that right now, or rather the sort of technology and non-tech, field trips or labs or robotics or whatever, those are expensive. They take time, and they don't even scale. In fact, when budgets get cut, and I know this firsthand from my kids' school, those things are the first things to go. And in fact, in some countries, you don't even have any of this. Right? So how do we bring all this to kids? And that is where VR comes in. Because what VR does, it really scales at experiential learning. Right? So instead of now learning passively from a book with flat pictures or information, you're actually you're kind of teleporting yourself into a world where you see things that you even couldn't go in in a school bus, like the bottom of the sea or up into space. So how many people remember, take yourself back for a moment, close your eyes and think about when you were in school, right? And you learned stuff in a textbook. How many people remember some of the lessons they learned? I'd say probably a fair number, or no one seems to be putting up their hand. Some. Now, think about any field trip you took. Who remembers that? Okay, marginally a few more people. So imagine learning about, lions or tigers from your textbook, but imagine now going to the zoo and seeing them in their, I wouldn't call it natural habitat, but imagine seeing them in something that is sort of more than what you learn from passive pictures. And that is why sort of VR is so important in education. And in fact, how many people here know about Google Expeditions? Okay, great. So that's our sort of first large-scale solution for VR in the classroom. And here you've got students who are not learning about Machu Picchu from the books, but supplementing that through actually being teleported into that with the teacher guiding that experience, right? And that it opens up a whole new level of communication collaboration. In fact, students get so excited by what they see, then it opens up a lot more dialogue between them about, and discussion about what they've seen and what it means. And actually, some people say VR is isolating. We've actually seen the opposite. Kids are really excited to discuss what they've learned. And in fact, in some applications, you create sort of, virtual spaces more than, we communicate virtually already through email and docs and video conferencing, but now you create a virtual space where kids can sort of congregate and and check out stuff. So this is why teachers are really also excited about VR, right? They say it really motivates kids to learn and challenges their creativity because, and based on some of what our partners have said who are developing content for, that they place in schools, it actually, kids go at their own pace. They only move forward when they've learned something, and therefore their retention and their engagement is a lot higher than it is when you're in a lecture, so to speak. So this is all very exciting, but for the content creators among us, what should one sort of build in this if this is so important, right? So I'm coming back to VR, remember, enables sort of new experiences, lets you go somewhere that you couldn't go before. It's best for, if it's too expensive, like a training or something, or it's sort of impossible, like going to the bottom of the sea or going into space, or even, putting yourself in a different gender or race to understand how they feel, or counterproductive, like deforesting a forest because you want to see what the effects of deforestation are. AR is best for when you're extending traditional play patterns but superimposing the world on you, right? So for building, construction, exploration, it works well in those situations. And these are some of the sort of components that especially VR bring to the table. It allows you to be immersed in something so you forget the world around you. And it actually tricks your body into feeling that you're there. You get a lot more empathy than you would by just reading and hearing about something. You actually walk in someone's shoes. And it's really great when you can affect the outcome. You have agency. So you're not just passively following along, but you can actually change what you're viewing and how you do stuff. But at the end of the day, technologies come and go, they get evolved. But the interesting thing is students stay the same. They're curious. They want to learn. They want to explore. So don't ever sort of lose sight of that by getting so into the technology. And when you ask kids what do they want to do, they want to go to space or go inside the human body. They want to go on an adventure. They want to do things that they couldn't otherwise do. And in fact, very few of them are like, well, we just want to play games. There's a lot of learning experiences that they're very excited about. And interestingly, teachers also want similar things. They want to supplement what they're teaching, the concepts in the curriculum, with taking kids on a simulation of, the Wright brothers' first flight or the pyramids of Gaza, whatever. So because then it brings those concepts to life for the kids. So in this, both teachers and students are aligned. In fact, here are some of the examples of content that we through our partners and through conversations with educators, are what is really going to be initially in the near term driving adoption of technologies in schools. So think about immersion and teleportation. That's a sort of big one, as well as experiences where kids kind of connect with each other. Imagine kind of a VR, Minecraft, etc. And the subjects that teachers think are most beneficial, interestingly, the science, but history and social studies, and to some extent art and literature. Now, what's really interesting here is math is missing. So, how do you do VR for math? And I think that's sort of a really interesting opportunity. But if you're building for the classroom, it's really important to understand, to work within the classroom setting, because it's not like teachers are going to just be like, oh, wow, let me put aside everything I know and I have tons of time and I'm going to totally understand how this works and figure out how to adapt it. It really needs to adapt to them. So think about lesson plans that, so it adapts to their curriculum, or accessibility from multiple sort of devices and really make it easy to use. That also one thing that does not change. Teachers do not have, I don't know about here, but the US, teachers have negative extra time. So some tips from partners who are building interesting solutions for this. So we've got companies like Labster building a sort of virtual chemistry lab. We've got Immersive building experiences where kids are taken to different parts of the world. So here are some of the things that they say are really important. And I'll go through, actually, given time, I'll go through some of these pretty quickly. So to make it immersive, kids need to feel like they are sort of part of the story, right? To remove the distractions, really give them a narrative and make them sort of, engage them, and try and get, if you can, all 5 senses. Though I don't think anyone's ever done it with, sort of taste and smell yet, but try and engage them as much as possible. And one of the applications that really works well in this space is language learning. You have apps now for that. Of course, you've got all the, we learn through like books and tapes and things. But imagine if you're just in that situation, you're chatting, you're kind of right there. And because you're immersed in it, your learning is enhanced, as we found out from people who use VR in very early stage, but using language learning, using VR for language learning. Then make it interactive, right? I talked about agency. I talked about giving them choice, whether it's the student or it's the teacher who's directing a class. Let them figure out where to go, and also give them sort of a non-linear narrative. So it's not just, okay, then this, then this, then this. Give them a lot of different options, right? And in this example, we've got 2 students who are different parts of the world, but are trying to figure out what the right mass of this ball should be by knocking over a pin. And they're sort of doing it again and again and trying to sort of understand sort of what to do. And it's very interactive, and it's, as a bonus, it's also collaborative. Kids don't need to be in the same classroom, let alone same country, to be able to collaborate together. And then some of our partners who are building educational games sort of concur and really talk about make sure you engage students. It's more important for younger, sort of kids than what you're creating for adults. Make it sort of more playful, and even education sort of can be playful, right, to be engaging. Kids don't want to, sort of click a pointer. They want to wave a magic wand, for example, right? So make sure that it's got surprises, it's got sort of fun and playful components to it. Make it feel like magic, because to a lot of people right now, it is. Okay. Okay. Make onboarding sort of simple. Don't make it long and texty. Make quick, punchy stuff. Remember attention spans of kids, even the 16, 17 sort of high school age kids. So make it, and also if you're designing stuff for kids that are younger, think about making it proportional to their size and at their eye level. And here's some of partners who've talked about, for example, Legacy Games has in Tango, which is our solution for AR. It's a set of sensors that allow you to figure out where you are, but you need to scan the room first. So they use a token character to facilitate that scanning, and that kids can engage with. And then collaboration is sort of really important. So how do you create collaboration in VR and AR? Earlier I talked about how it actually enables kids to be in the same virtual space, or it lets them, or if they're there, they enables a lot of dialogue. But you can actually do that by giving different information to those inside the VR experience and outside, right? And then in AR, you can give it by giving access to different things. So for example, you've got into the labyrinth, you've got someone who's in the VR maze, but a teammate who's guiding them through it, right? Or you're looking at here in Happy Atoms, they're looking at different molecules on different devices or the same device. And then lastly, community is really important, especially in education. So a lot of partners say, make sure, because this is all new, right? So make sure you get approval before taking it to market, run it by your community of educators, students, parents, and get a variety of people, and interact with them often. So make sure that it's something that works for them before you take it out to the market. And this is especially important in education. And then here's some of our partners who are, cannot stress that enough. So if this is very daunting, and there are those of you who are considering sort of what should we do, how do we evaluate that, I would say the most important thing is don't just take an existing experience and put it in VR or AR, right? Think about what is the right experience, what would it be, would it enhance sort of what you're doing? And if it doesn't, if it's not better in VR and AR, go back to the drawing board and get something else that you think might work better. But then understand the technology you're working on, which device, is it even VR or AR? If so, which device, what age group? Partner with teachers, designers, students, et cetera, and do a lot of testing. And here's sort of, some of our technologies are on sort of developers.google.com for those of you who are developing. I have 5 seconds, so I will tell you if there's more Q&A. I have a session, I think in St. Pancras room at 3:45. Happy to answer more questions there. And also a reminder to please rate the session. I think there's rating going on. But anyway, thank you.